All aboard. It's How Not to Game with Kelly Jack. I'm Kelly Jack, the guy who shares the face, body, soul, and unfortunately allergies with Difid Rex. I am the gaming persona used by the guy called Difid Rex, except for when he's playing SimCity. So we're kind of looking it over on the post-mortems here. Even though it hasn't occurred yet, we're going to take a peek at what drove our companies into ground. Going to look at some of the tools that I didn't use during the games and kick myself for not doing so. This is a how not to, so I'm showing you what I did wrong, so that you pay attention to these things and get a better performing company than I did. CC&R, or Calico Cartage and Rails, is one of the bigger companies on the map of the two. Definitely by and far. And even had rails due to a mistake I'd made, and that was a mistake that I should have went back and destroyed the rail on. One, it would have slowed down IVCT at a time when it was going good, and cost him a little bit of money to replace the rail he was using. But at the same time, I was trying to gain back some of that money through the amount of traffic running across it, which was minuscule early on, but later became profitable. Let's take a peek, shall we, into the financials of CC&R. So, raw financials, it's pretty obvious. We were losing money. We're not even to the end of June. And it's pretty obvious we were going to probably be still in that 162,000 at the hole. Looking at the op profits, while it was an upturn path going on, and we had been managing to turn it around since 1962, it's not fast enough. It needed to be this level of a curve right off the bat. So you have to be more aggressive and you have to address the problems. Breaking down by transportation types, is perhaps one of the better ways to look at. Trucks, or in this case, road traffic would be more appropriate, because it would include trucks, buses, and any other vehicle that uses the road. Sorry if I seem to be taking a lot of sips of coffee. I am trying to flush a little bit of an allergy system reaction out of my system. I am broken out once more with patches of hives. Not a happy camper. And here we can see still a downward trend. We can ignore this because this is a yearly. Go to a monthly, and again, still there seems an uptick, but we're only halfway through the month. So the actual op costs that we're going to accrue are more likely to be this. Look at trips added to that, and trips were pretty much flat. Without an increase in trips, and that is units of cargo, passengers, or parcels of mail, bags of mail delivered, you're not going to get, unless you find efficiencies, an increase in profits. And we didn't obviously gain efficiencies too much if we were still this tight monthly and yearly on our op profit. Within our trains, we were seeing a good pattern up to here. Monthly, though, our swings are just too wild. We didn't have a steady stream of income. No industry does. There's cyclic periods. But usually you have several months of good to make up for a few months of somewhat bad. We were just all over the place and always below the zero line by train. So we really should have been focusing better on how our trains were functioning. Also back here in trains, trips was still overall flat. Our peak is all the way back here 20 months ago. Going yearly, there we do show an increase. So that does mean that we did have a right correction going on. But this being half of this, less than half, does leave me somewhat worried. Ship was never a winning thing. And towards the end, we were running zero for long months. And we've had a massive down drop in our shipping. We had one ship out there, a ferry, and that ferry should have been doing real good. Why should it have been doing real good? Take a look in the lists at those two cities that they were connected. Oops, wrong one station. I want city list. And Sheffield and Wakefield were both fairly large cities. Sheffield's the largest city on the map. It should have gone to go to everybody. So we did make mistakes on how we were trying to take it function. Tram was one of our bright spots, but still not that great. Looking at our monthlies on tram, while we had a good, relatively flat setup, it was the same for our losses. Relatively flat, not coming up. Where did we do good? Probably electrical, right? Our other, we were taking fees for our headquarters and a couple other structures there. Power lines was our saving grace. Our power grid was well designed. It was making money. Not only that, it was making almost 6 times the amount of money that we were losing. So that's a really good designed power network. Tight, small, and profitable. That margin says it all. And looking at that margin over time, it was fairly flat in the 60s to 80s. That's a really good margin. So that was the financials. What drove those financial losses for us? Well, let's take a peek. Station performance. I'll guarantee you that. No connections first. And there, Wakefield Duck Lane stop had no connection. It was the only one we had that way. One stop isn't going to make that big of a difference. But the overcrowding issue is where we lost it. This is your service metric. And look at these that are north of 1,000. You had 115,000 people waiting at Field Lane Station. Where were they trying to get to? Had we looked, we would have seen trying to get people there via the various routes that it suggested should have been our goal. And the goal we should have been looking for was to move people to those communities faster and better. We didn't succeed. So when you're looking, always look where they want to go and then how they're getting there. Because if you can get to the how first, to the first stop, the quick stop from there to there, the connected stop, then you can go look at what your service levels needed to be. And we should have been watching these service levels the whole time. This is the hardest part to do because it requires, and the more complex your system gets, the tougher it is to manage. Constantly adjusting your service levels. It doesn't take long to build up to those levels. 100,000, 65,000, 46,000, 34,000. That's all lost revenue. Revenue that's there. They're gonna buy the ticket, but we just can't give them a ticket. And without the ticket, we don't get money. So, watch your service levels. And that's probably the biggest mistake that was made by our company. Let's go take a look at some of those industries we served, and especially Telford Power. This is probably our best one. Consumed versus arrived, and we were actually doing really good. We were actually performing right around the right amount. So we were delivering enough, even with the ups and downs, to match that consumed. And that's a key item. Come to the sand quarry, down here, again, the goods, produced, delivered, matching. So we were doing good on it. It's just there was ways we could have improved. Not all of these were the good high value ones either. That's the other problem. Really, it was our passenger delivery that bit us in the end. I do wish there was a way to break out cargo from freight on the financials. I do. That would be an interesting breakdown on our financials to be able to look at. There is one way to do it, and that is just looking at the line, going through batch by batch. Those red ones and the yellow ones. Yellow means that it hadn't run in a long time. It had flatlined, stopped producing, or demand wasn't there, so it was no longer being asked to deliver. And those are all things we need to watch for. We should have been watching the red lines a lot more carefully. And the black lines as well. The blue lines, hey, I can live with it occasionally having a vehicle that maybe we've got older cars on. That's going to give you a blue line. And that's where it was here. The Marylands, once they retired out those single hopper cars in favor of the double hoppers, that's where our loss was. So we kind of broke him down. The other thing was the size of the system and the layout. We really should have gone with a different layout system. However, given where we started, I would say that it was a problem. Now I have saved the game and we will come back to the game down the road if folks would like to see a can you recover a failed company type scenario. It's that layout. Two totally separate networks connected only by a ferry. We really should have connected these in better, had better ground connections, used the ferry for just that one, maybe two. Had we upped it, had we built it better, we could have had a much better setup. And we know that we can take and build profitable ferry systems, because in 64 we have a profitable ship system running in our game for the expanding worlds. So it can be done in this game. Admittedly, there's not as many of the smaller vehicles for starting a late line run. And that is a mistake that I wish we could take and correct. Using obsolete vehicles for that might be an option if you're trying to do that. All right, we've looked over this guy. We've seen the chaos that was over here, how we probably should have gone this way and made this into different spurrings, the whole 9 yards. Let's go down south, where a slightly different story was going. A company that for the most part was profitable, though just not in the past few years. Matter of fact, it had been 20 years or more since this company had been profitable. And yet we know that it was the better of the two back in the 40s. So again, mismanagement, not following. Running two companies does make it much more difficult for a player. So, that's why they suggest one per company. Looking him over, his yearly was on the right track. In his road vehicles, again, road vehicles, the buses often do not make you money. And a lot of his were buses. Though there were some trucks, relay trucks, to try to take and do a better, more realistic hub and spoke system. The slow build towards a eventual changeover that would have created a loop. And some of the system was just not laid out like we would like. So we're going to go to Britain next, after this. Like I said, just a short reprieve from 128, and then we will be back for a second, more serious try at Pak128. Please leave a comment in the comments below as to what year you think we should start the secondary in. Or should we try to take and salvage these guys? I'm not going to make it a poll. Polls don't seem to get many votes right now. We'll hold off on any polls. Leave that for expanding worlds. Train. We had a right direction going. We turned it around. So there was good news coming on his trains, and most of his was we let it deteriorate. And then when we bought trains, that started to turn things around. immediately they were the ones that went out of service while we were working the other guy. This here is that long prolonged period we spent on IVCT. Ship. Our one ship was something we forgot about. We probably should have come back to it. Tram. Our tram network here was singular and bad, or too and badly designed. Probably should have come up with a better design. And I think it was the design of the tram network and the fact that we jumped on it so early that made a mistake. We had considerably more infrastructure than the other guys. Hence the 38,000 versus or 3,800 versus 14 up north. Power lines, just like the other guy. That's the redeeming grace. This was a very well designed, well supplied, and steady power system. And again, probably the same mistakes. What do you want to bet? Shall we? I don't even think it's a bet. Come in here and we're in the wrong Kai. We were looking at the wrong finances the whole time. What am I talking about? So electricity was a good boost. Other was lesser than what they thought. That's right. Okay, we were making money on trains. Barely. Had done much better. And as I said, 60s, we were doing really good during the 50s and 60s. So this company had potential. IVCT's methodology was working. Had we stayed with it and had we obeyed them a little bit better, they would have worked better. Sorry about that. I was looking at the wrong financials, forgot to switch. Hey, you. Switch. Thank you. Now show me. Overcrowded. Only 3, nowhere near as overcrowded as the other guy, but still, we were leaving about 6,300, 64, 65, 6,500 passengers on the line, and that's all our units of cargo on the line. Big mistake. And it was all rail passengers. Yep. All rail passengers. Wow. We could have done considerably better here. So, one company focus is a better way to go. Yeah, it's fun to build other companies, but you've got to have set rules so you're not away too long. Because there was times where I spent 3-4 years trying to fix CC&R, and that's what drove IVCT into trouble, was those neglect periods. Coming down, just doing a little few things down here because it was still going good. You think you got it made. Takeaway, watch your service levels. Your service levels for your stations are where your money's at, guys. So learn to use the station tools and station list, especially the settings. You can use for the goods in, you can use for the goods out, but that special filter, overcrowded and no connection, are the most powerful tools for your service levels there are. Well, I'm Cali Jack. This has been a fun exploration. Like I said, we will be coming back to Pak128. Down the road, we may even come in and do first honest try revisited or something. But for now, we'll be going for a second, more serious try. And like I said, leave a comment down below in the comments as to when you'd like us to start time frame ways. Do you want to see an early Steam game? Do you want to see a mid-Steam game, which would be the 1860s? Do you want to see the glory of Steam, the 1900 through 1945? Do you want to see the birth of diesel? Do you want to see the bullet train era? Realize those are tougher because the bullet trains actually need a backbone to build off of. Which is why it's so pricey nowadays to build a network from scratch when you destroyed those networks ages ago. Like here in America we did with our passenger rail and passenger local light rail trolley services. Had we kept them up, yeah, we'd have been spending a lot of money for upgrades, but at the same time, the ridership base still would have been there. Well, I'm Kelly Drack. Have a better day, or at least a less itchy day than I'm having.